frozen with fear when it came from space. You were terrorized when it came from the deep. Your skin crawled when it came from the dead. This time, it came from within. What will be unleashed as we open the hidden chamber?
Well, welcome to our series, It Came From Within. We're glad that you're here. I love that offering thing, though. I have to kind of mention that. I think we might have Barry show up at the church here. You know, one of the things that we learn early on in life is something we call behavior modification. As a kid growing up, I learned, just like you learned, that there are certain things that we say that we don't say. And there are certain things that we don't do because there are circumstances if we do certain things or say certain things. For instance, in my family, my parents were extremely strict with the words that we said in our home. We couldn't say gee, or gee whiz, or golly, or gosh, or darn, or dang, or anything like that because it was too close to other words that were bad. And if we said any of those words, to be quite frank, my mom would get out a bar of soap, wet up a washcloth, suds it up really good, and she would proceed to wash our mouths out with soap, which proved to be a pretty good method of behavior modification. And we didn't get Lyme disease or become blind, like Ralphie visualized in the Christmas story. None of that stuff happened. We just learned really early on in our family that, according to my parents, there were certain words that were appropriate and there were certain words that were not appropriate. And you learn that real fast when you keep getting your mouth washed out time and time again with soap. I know from experience. But all of us have memories and stories like that. And when we look back over our lives, we can see just how much time that we have spent adjusting our behavior. Because in the real world that you and I live in, if we don't say the right things and if we don't act the right way, things don't go too well for us. And so we have to stop and we have to adjust our behavior. This is a big part of our journey from adolescence to adulthood. Think about it. We learn what to say to get through school. We learn what to say to get a date. We learn what to say to keep a date. And we learn what to say and what to do to keep a relationship going. And we learn what to say and what to do to get a job interview. And we learn very quickly what we can and can't say and what we can and can't do to keep a job. And this is how we kind of just navigate our way through life, learning what to say and learning what to do in order to make our life work. But every once in a while, we hit a little glitch, and every once in a while, something happens, and we say something that we didn't mean to say, and we go, I don't know where that came from. Maybe a relationship crashes, or we lose a job, or God forbid, there's a lawsuit, and we just unleash these horrible things, and we say these horrible words, but when we look at ourselves in the mirror, it's almost like a stranger is looking back at us, and we go, whoa, where did that come from? Boy, I better not do that again. And again, what we do is we stop and we try to adjust our behavior. You see, we've all developed this filter through which we filter our words and we filter our actions in order to make life work. Because boy, if we didn't filter our words, we'd still get our mouths washed out with soap every day. And if we didn't develop and learn how to use this filter, we'd still need spankings every day. At least I would. So we have this filter for our words and our actions, and we've all learned how to modify our behavior so that we can function in life and maintain relationships and learn how to make a living and how to manage our money and handle all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that we learn very early on in life is to monitor our behavior. The problem is that's not enough. Because at some point along the way, something kind of slips through that filter and we go, ooh, I didn't mean to say that, or where did that come from? And all of a sudden we realize that we've said or done something and there are going to be these major consequences, and we hope that we don't get caught, and we hope that nobody finds out, and we say to ourselves, that wasn't like me at all. Or maybe somebody was there when we lost it and they say, wow, that wasn't like you at all. And when we think of this scenario in our life, and this situation in our life, it's like this filtering system that we have. It has a hole in it. And so we try again and again to patch it up, and we say things like, boy, I better never say that again, or I'm never going to do that again. And what we're going to talk about for the next few weeks is that it's really not enough to monitor our behavior. We have to learn to monitor something else. But this something else that we need to learn to monitor is something that no one has ever taught us how to monitor. In fact, because we've grown up in a world that focuses so much on what we say and what we do, we tend to neglect this other thing, this source from which so much of life emanates. You see, think about this. If it was enough to just monitor our behavior, then we would live in a world without murder, theft, abuse, without divorce. If it was enough to just monitor our behavior, then we would live in a utopian society, healthy relationships, peace, safety, serenity. But we all know that that's not the case. So we know that there's this deeper issue here. And it's this very issue that's caused some of you, 6 months after you got married, to say to your best friend or to your parents, you know what? This guy that I'm married to, I can't believe how he talks to me and how he treats me. He's not the same man that I married. I'm telling you, when we dated, he behaved like a perfect gentleman. And now 6 months later, he's changed. I don't know who this guy is, or for that matter, I don't know who this woman is. It's kind of this Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, because they're like two different people. But I'm telling you, when we met and when we dated, he or she behaved the right way, said all the right things, but now it's like, who on earth is this person? You see, sooner or later, we all learn that simply monitoring our behavior and monitoring our words is just not enough. Behavior modification, as valuable as it is just not enough. So, what's the solution? Jesus gives us some great insight into all this in the book of Matthew, chapter 15 and verse 18. If you're new to Bible study, that's going to be about 4/5 of the way into the Bible, the first book in the New Testament. In Matthew 15, Jesus is having this conversation with these religious people, and he speaks these words to them. This is what he says. Listen to what he says. The things that come out of the mouth come from the heart. From the heart. And when we read this whole passage of Scripture, Jesus is making the point that everything that comes out of the mouth comes from the heart. He says it's as if the mouth is like a stethoscope to the heart. If you want to know what's in a person's heart, you just listen to what comes out of their mouth. Jesus says, hey, it's real easy to figure out what's in a person's heart by listening to what comes out of their mouth. In other words, when we have those moments where we go, whoops, I didn't mean to say that. I don't know where that came from. Jesus would say, oh, I do. It came from your heart. Of course, we would argue and say, oh, no, Jesus, that is so uncharacteristic of me. I don't say things like that. That's not what I normally say. But he would say, I know, because you've learned to use a filter. You've learned how to get along in your relationships. You've learned how to monitor and edit your words. But every once in a while, something is going to pierce